In this video help tutorial, we're going to start using the Project Marketing Project Main screen for the Project Management Universal application. When you come into this screen, basically what you're going to be doing is creating a new project. For this case, this is the linking record to all of these screens over here. When you add a new record, you're going to be getting a sequence number by 1 every time you add a new record. When you add a new record, what you're doing is creating a project by whatever number you want to put in here, and that'll access and edit all these screens over here. You can basically click once to open up the screen, which is called a popover, and add data to it. Now we're going to get ahead of ourselves here, so I'm not going to look at those right now. What we're going to be doing is covering the interface at the top of the screen and some of the basic things about using the primary screen in this application. And the last screen video that we looked at the main app menu on the screen, and you'll see in here that it has all the listings of all the screens in the entire application, including the report screens over here in this area. To access any of the screens in here, it's a single click or tap to get to that particular screen. Now, for example, if I wanted to go to the video help tutorials, I would just tap or click in this area. And then as you see in the application, the primary screen for project marketing is the one where you start in the application as far as actually entering and editing information. The product video tutorials are used to learn how to use the interface and all the screens in the entire application. All the screens being everything in the app map. But as you're looking across the screens, these are called popovers, and these are the primary screens for editing new records, editing records, and doing anything that has to do with entry of data in these screens. Now what happens, these screens are also included in these 23 buttons, and what we're doing in here is we're using this to access and enter a new record. Over here you're just viewing everything or going to a particular record. For example, if I used a list view, I could go into the list view and I could see all the records that are entered in that particular screen. Now there's a portal and a main screen. In this case, the main screen is here, and a portal record would be one of the records in here. Let's look at this. This particular thing is a portal. It's a multi-line portal where you can add record data and have as many records as you need in order to work with the application. Now, in this particular case, a portal record is not searchable by using the action button, do action button, where you want to do a search. It will not allow you to do a search on a portal, but any data in a single field area like over here on the record screen, including the notes over here, can be searched for information that you're looking for that will be to find a particular record. Just for a reference, we did this a little bit before, but I'm going to repeat it. In order to do a do action, we come over here and let's see what they are. The do action is start a search and then perform a search. When you start the search, it'll empty all the field data, including out of the portals, as you look at them. You cannot search over here because these are all popovers and they're all considered portals. You would go to the actual portal screen where there's a button in here and go to the portal to search for the individual record. The individual record being the ones that are in this sliding portal. So you would go in there and then go ahead and go to the portal record for any of the records in here and search for those as well. Now let's go over and look at the actual information as far as what the interface will do as far as adding information. Now when you're in a regular field, you can do a search, as we stated here. You can also, after you do a search, especially if you're looking at a list view or a report, you can search for a specific ID record or its project number or anything that is critical, like something on a date range or even a name of something in this area. You don't do that in the portal unless you're actually in the single portal record. Then you can do the same kind of search on all the normal fields, not portals. Show all records is when you get done with the search and you're finished looking for the records that you want. You click on the show all records, and what it'll do is it'll return all the records that are not in what is called the current selection. A current selection is something that you've done a search for and perform the search, and then after you get done using the information that you just searched for, click on the search all or show all records, and it'll bring all that information back. If you want to navigate between records, you can go to the first record, the next record, the prior record, the last record. And this is basically this information over here. You're not using that in these records here, where you do have the ability to go to the first and last records. And that's what those little buttons do right there. Showing the prior record, last record, and now what happens, say like you're on a list view and you have several records in selection and you want to omit one or more of those records. You can use omit record when you're selecting it in the row, and you can get rid of that record if you want to reduce it down to the actual records you want to view, print, or work with. Show omitted records does the exact opposite. If you omitted some records and now you want to see what was not included in the selection, it will show you everything that was not shown in that selection. And that's how you omit records and then show them individually. You can go either way. Import records. When you do import records, it'll bring up a dialog, and the dialog will ask you to go ahead and start first of all, you want to do a search maybe and find all the information that you want to put in as far as the data that's already in the records. And then if you have something that you're bringing into the application, either where you modified something in a, say, Excel format and you want to bring it in, what you would do is go ahead and adjust the record that you're bringing in. Say, for example, it's a CSV or an Excel, for example. You would reduce the data down to what you actually want to bring it in. Then you would click this record right here where it says import on this button, and it would set up the import. In the same way, the export is done. You can export data, and in this case, you take a selection of records that you want to export by doing a search and get a selection of records. You can review those in a list view to make sure that's what you want to export. And in the export button, it'll give you the ability to say, I want one or more fields. For example, say I only wanted the project management and a date and maybe the address. I could pick those in the export and only export that data. Now, a lot of times what you're doing is you might want to create a CSV file or an Excel worksheet that has only things that you want, not all the data in the records. And you export that and say you want to use it as a customer listing thing for the customer and the data about the customer, and say maybe you're going to put this into maybe an email list where you can email to all those customers. That's the way you would do it, is reduce the amount of information down to the actual records and selection that you want, then export them. Now let's talk a little bit about exports. If this application is used on the cloud, you can export and import records. If you're on an iPad, you can export records. But what's happened is Apple and iTunes, as far as the devices like the iPhone and iPad, do not have the ability to import data into records on an iPad or an iPhone. But if you're on the desktop or the browser, when you're using the cloud, you can go ahead and import data as well as export data. Printing screens. If you want to print a screen, approximately from this upper corner down to about on this area right here, the layouts have been set up so that you can actually print that data that is on that side in an 8.5 by 11 format. You can also, if you're an international user, you can set the screen either by zooming in or zooming out, and also just to get the area that you want to print, you can set the print area to whatever zoom in or zoom out that you want. Then you can print that portion of the screen. On a list view, if the list view extends beyond a certain area, say like about out in here, you can change the orientation of the screen on the printer setup and allow that to be the work area that you're going to actually print, which would be in a landscape, and this would be in a portrait. So you would set that when you set up the print record. Sorting. You can sort in certain records, and I would say you'd want to do that in list views. Now, most of the list views are already set up in a sort, but if you want to change that for a given selection of records, you would use the sort, which would pop up a dialog and allow you to pick the record field that you want to sort the screen by, so that you'd see the records in the order you wanted to. This down here for support website is the developer's website. And in the developer's website, you can ask for information, you can chat with the developer, or you can leave your email address and we'll get in touch with you, but leave the questions that you need to have answered. Now, you get free technical support with this application. You're not charged for any of that. In fact, the application itself is just the price of the application. You get all the support for free that is related to using the application. This is a popover. A popover is a single jump-up screen, and all these are popovers over here too, as opposed to standard fields in a screen and portals over here. What's the difference between them? Basically, the way you navigate to things, or you can, in a popover here, you can, like this one, you can bring it up and do some kind of a function within that popover. Okay, let's go to the next one that we're looking at, is the Do Action button we just finished. We already went to the references. If you are on the browser, on the cloud, and you're logging out, you're going to have to use the Log Out button. Or if you're on an iPad and you want to close down the records that are in the iPad and the FMGo application, you would use Log Out, and you would log out with this. If you're on Windows or a Macintosh, all you have to do is use whatever they offer as far as closing, like the red X up here in the Macintosh. And similar to that on the IBMs or Windows, you would use their closeout screen. Okay, the next thing is navigating to different locations. We already showed over here you can do that, but there are some what we call hot buttons in the application, where specifically in this case, the marketing list view is in here. If you want to change from one project to another, you can either do a find and use the ID number, or even the project management number in order to go to that particular field or screen in another application for that particular project. If you want to go to a list view in a hot button, you would go ahead, and each screen may have a different hot button in it, but the primary one is, if you don't do a find, you can do the marketing list view and go to the list view and pick the project that you're actually wanting to go to. Now, if you have thousands of projects in here, you would use the Do Action, do a find, and pick either the project number or the ID for that particular record, or maybe even the company name. List views are very helpful in that you can bring data together in a very easy to find situation. Or, for example, if you want to just view one of them, you can just click Edit. It'll take you into that particular screen. Now, the prior screen that we're in had ID 1. This is ID 2. It's a separate project. Now, understanding as we go through the application, when you're adding data into these fields, there's a lot of things that you can vary the way that they actually appear. In this case, we gave a default. In this case, we created a project proposal number, and the project proposal number is what you use to identify the particular project that you're working in by its number. And then you'd have all the additional data over here. And you'll see that corresponding, you'll see that this is actually the information for this project, where it changes the ID automatically. And in this case up here, it shows you the ID number for this portal for that particular project. And as you pass through all the information in the different screens, this and a couple other things will be repetitive, and they normally will be used where you can just use what is called a drop down. And what happens when you click in a drop down, what it does is it gives you some selections and allows you to pick from the selections to exactly what you want to use as far as the data that's going into that field. Other things are closed things. Maybe it's a data numeric entry, or it could be a text entry that is a separate one that is used. Now, in this case, these are US money symbols. If you check with a development organization by using the Do Action and going to that particular developer's website, we can actually change the numeric value of the money symbol to whatever country that you want. And in some cases, depending on the language that's used in the screen, the headers here are US phrases and words. If you are using a Windows or a Mac, you can set up the location, and it should change these to, as far as this data, it should change it to whatever your local language is. If you want to have your native language for your country, talk to the developer, and the developer can work out a thing where we can change all the headers so that they fit your country. There's an extra charge for that. It's not that much, so if you want to have it changed, just check with the developer. The other thing about using the application, and this is throughout the entire application, this is a custom application. This is the base application for that. If you want just the base application and no modifications, then you'll be sold this particular application with what is in it. If you find that you have things that are not included and you want to add them, contact the developer, and we can do a custom version, which will provide you that information that you're needing. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the next screen. We're going to return here and start the new tutorial. And what we're going to do is we're going to work through all the things that we didn't change or look at in this screen and how to use it, and show you how this basic interface is used to run the entire application. Okay, let's go to the next video help. Thank you.